Louise and I have lived in a number of communities where there were homeowners associations that were basically condoized. We lived in a floating home community that was like that. And we've lived in a couple of other places, one that was duplex condos, another that was housing condos. And here's the scam. And there are a few states, there's about a dozen states that have started doing something about this just in the last couple of years. But most of these condos were built back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, certainly the one that collapsed in Florida. And the developers, when they build a condo, let's say that they're going to sell the condo for $100,000 and there's this homeowner's fee that, pays for pool maintenance and lawn maintenance and in some cases the siding on the outside of the houses and the roofs need to be replaced every 10 or 20 years and all this kind of stuff. But the developers who are selling the condo don't want that fee to be high because that reduces the willingness of people to buy the condos, which reduces their profits. So they don't. So they set a fee of maybe $100 a month, or $300 a month, or $400 a month, or whatever it may be. I know one of the condos that we lived in, it had started at like $30 a month, and it was up to $400 when we left. And we left, frankly, because the board was so dysfunctionally, they were not doing what they needed to do in terms of maintenance. And so the developer sells the condos at, let's say, $100,000. Here's a condo, it's $100, whether it's an apartment or whether it's a duplex or whatever it may be. Here's the, for $100,000. And the fee is only $100 a month. And people go, well, I can afford that. But that $100 a month does not include what is going to be in 10 years the cost of replacing the roof. Or what's going to be in 20 years or even 30 years the cost of replacing the foundation. Or, as in the case of this condo in Florida, the cost of replacing, the pool area that had deteriorated, that appears to be now, what caused this collapse. And down in Florida, this condo, this Champlain condos, they figured this out. The homeowners association figured out that, holy cow, we've got a big problem, because they had this inspection back in 2018. And they had just like a month or three ago hit their homeowners with an $80,000 assessment. Everybody who had a condo there had to cough up $80,000. People were literally borrowing against the value of their condos to pay this $80,000 in so that they could do the repairs to prevent the building from collapsing. Why did they have to pay $80,000? Because for the 40 years the condo had been there, the condo association monthly fee had not had an extra $30 or $40 added to it that would have built a reserve that would have covered those kind of maintenance costs. And why didn't they have that reserve in there? Because the developers were greedy and because it was unregulated. This is deregulation on steroids. And I'm telling you, if you've lived in a condo, you know what I'm talking about. At least if you've lived in one that was built more than 10 or 20 years ago, and all of a sudden stuff is going wrong, and the condo association is going, well, we're going to have to do a $20,000 assessment. We're going to have to do a $60,000. There's a condo near where we live now, where they just did it. I forget the exact amount. I think it was like $60,000 assessment because they had to reside the whole place because the siding was rotting. It has been there for 30, 40 years. Well, this should not be the case, right? It should be that these are built into the fees all along this time. So, and DeSantis down in Florida actually last year, and I believe I retweeted this yesterday. It was all over Twitter. DeSantis had he called it a deregulation-a-thon, where he invited companies and people to this public meeting to come in and suggest which regulations should be cut. And one of the areas that he suggested in the official announcement was, regulations of developers. Really? We want to deregulate developers even more? When they've been running this scam ever since condos became a big thing back in the 60s and 70s? It's nuts. I mean, this is just, like I said, this is how developers make more money, they sell these things more easily, and people buy them thinking, oh, my condo fee is not going to be that high. And then, and they just pass it down basically to future generations of homeowners. 30 years later, somebody else owns the condo, and they're thinking, oh, I'm only paying $100 a month of my condo fee or $400 a month of my condo, when they're about to get hit with an $80,000 assessment, which is exactly the amount that they used in Champlain Towers down there. Anyhow, end of rant.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
There are some things that do require regulation, and frankly,